to a great mud bath, if you will, a great mudslide even, that has come our way in the Obergefell decision. And a few days before that, or a day before that, the decision upholding Obamacare by carefully neglecting 4 words in the statute, which were consistent with other parts of that vast trove of rules and regulations. And we are subject to this law. We are subject to federal law. We're told we are subject to Obergefell and its unitary state theory. Now, you say, well, what on earth does unitary state theory mean? Well, we don't live in a unitary state, at least legally. Legally, we live in a federal republic. We live in a republic in which the agent of the states, the federal power, the federal government created in its second form, created by the federal Constitution out of Philadelphia. That body is the servant of the states. It is their agent. It does things for which the states are not well equipped to do, which would be, for example, regulating enemies or fighting enemies of all the states in maritime jurisdiction on the seas, and also in regulating and regularizing. Actually, that's what regulating means: regularizing, making regular. It doesn't mean controlling. As in our modern usage, that's what it means. But in the older usage, regulating meant regularizing trade among the states. That is also federal in federal jurisdiction to a degree. Of course, now with the very elastic Commerce Clause, long turned into a rubbery device, virtually everything is subject to federal regulation, with few exceptions and few slapping of the hand. The federal hand that is reaching into yet perhaps another area today. Who knows if there's something new that entity has discovered to regulate, to effectively control. Tennessee is a volunteer state, but is it also a surrender state? Does volunteer mean to comply? And I think that it doesn't, and I think that there's reason to think that if we take our founding ideals and live them out, we can, in fact, be a richer, more prosperous state. And we can, indeed, here in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, have more prosperity and more capital. Our goal here at Nuganomics.com is to increase capital, not just the capital of ideas, but the actual creation of wealth. Now, wealth is not money. Okay, wealth is not money, but our goal here is to create more capital. And one circumstance that makes capital flourish, that enables capitalization, right? The whole process of creating wealth is liberty. And what is opposite of liberty? Well, opposite of liberty, you would have despotism, you would have fraud, you would have tyranny. These are forms of government, of course, that the modern state has taken very proudly. Actually, modern states have taken their absolutist ideals, their absolutist claims upon all of life among the people within each state or any state, and made itself a kind of god. And we are living at the terminal stage of that period, which is perhaps 300 years old. These are relatively new entities, modern states. When the United States was founded, when James Madison wrote and Thomas Jefferson wrote in the late 1700s, early 1800s, well, the state was a new conception. And in fact, the Americans had as their great example the French revolutionaries and their total state, in which all individual life, every family, every enterprise is subsumed, kind of absorbed by the people and their representative body, the state, which is a kind of a glorified, religiously oriented corporation, if you want to put it in kind of a short term. Well, my name is David Toulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com here at 1240 a.m. Hot News Talk Radio. And just as Bill Knowles, the county attorney, felt that it was his Christian obligation to uh, record marriage licenses between two men and two women, as he began that Friday when Obergefell was published. He felt that there was nothing to do as a Christian man. He could not stand on anything. He could not stand on the gospel. He could not stand on the truth of God's creation, which made men and women as complementary beings, where one man and one woman marry in a lifelong bond, having children, having family. The husband being the head, the wife being the helpmeet, because Eve was the help meet for Adam. That's why she's called a helpmeet. And that's how, and she loves him, looks up to him, and helps him. And his idea is the conquest of the world, conquest of geography, of agriculture, of zoology, all the things that are given to him to do. He does with Eve helping. That's our first family. From which we all came, whether you believe it or not. Those are our first ancestors. And Christianity says that this is where marriage comes from. And yet here in Hamilton County and in most other counties, I'd say probably 92 of the 95 counties in Tennessee, clerks, even those with the devout Christian convictions, have capitulated. They have capitulated, and they have agreed, effectively said that there's nothing I can do. There is no means of resistance. We do not live in a federated republic at all. And by surrendering, by Mr. Knowles's now marrying men and having his staff record same under our Constitution and under the U.S. Constitution as well, the United States Constitution, he has, I'm confident he understands, he has done his duty, right? And he has done his duty, as General Lee would say, you do your duty, even though it hurts you. He would say, well, I'm subject to higher powers, higher authority, and in the end, I just take orders. Well, not true. It's not true that county clerks in Tennessee are just administrators, as one of them was quoted on that Friday or the Monday after Obergefell came down, as saying, are they just clerks? Do they just have a ministerial duty? And the answer is they do have a ministerial duty, right? And they are administrators. But what is it that they administer? And how is it that county officials, even state officials here in Tennessee, can say, I'm going to be a good man and a fair man and a just man and an obedient man, and yet I'm going to go against my oath? And that's what's happened. Mr. Knowles went against his oath of office, and he has to account to God for that, because the oath that he made to take the position, probably for the 6th or 7th time now, of county clerk, was made in the presence of God and evoked God's name. Now that's a spiritual burden that he has to carry. Now, if he had taken my position, which I had suggested to him over the course of several months, if he had taken my position, he would now have widespread support, rather than just being an administrator, as he might want to say. He would be a man who's elected. And that's how he attained his office. He was elected by the people of Hamilton County, held their trust, and he swore to God to uphold the Tennessee Constitution and the United States Constitution. But what came between? What came between him to absolve him of his oath? To say that, well, Mr. Knowles, your oath really, you don't have to keep it now. There are circumstances beyond your control, which means that your oath doesn't matter, and we are going to comply. We are going to volunteer. So, the idea is the word is capitulation, but the gloss, right, the euphemism that we are going to be living through now for some time is volunteer. We volunteer. And I wonder if that's how prosperity is going to be kept here in Hamilton County. And there are all kinds of long-term negative effects of the deconstruction of marriage. Remember, Obergefell was not for gay marriage. It was against marriage. There really is no such thing as gay marriage. It simply can't be, even though it is in statute, as we are told. Now, what do gay people have? Do they have statutory marriage? Well, I guess they do. They have a license to do something, and they have to obtain a license to marry. Now, you obtain a license to do something because the thing you're trying to do is illegal, right? It's illegal It's a crime, a tort, a wrong, or something forbidden, and that's why it's licensed. And if you understand what the license is, you suddenly ask yourself, well, why am I licensed? You, my listener, why am I licensed to marry my wife? Why did I have to get permission to do that? Was that somehow illegal? Well, when you did that, just so you know, you yielded a constitutional right to marry, a common law right, a right a common right, meaning it's a right that belongs to every man and every woman, and to exercise it, one need not ask permission of anybody at all, no matter what sort of statutory claims are made in that state. Tennessee being a statutory marriage state, Alabama being a statutory and a common law marriage state. Tennessee pretends that it does not recognize common law marriages if those are enacted or created in the state. Well, we have given up our rights, you and me, as being licensees to marry, and but gay people really have to have a license to marry. They can't marry as a matter of common law. There is no common law homosexual marriage. It just doesn't exist. It does not exist. It is an impossibility, and it will never exist so long as there's the slightest tincture of Anglo-Saxon law and its heritage alive, still breathing, still in American jurisprudence. Though certainly there are university professors and law professors who want to change that. They want to make it so that there is such a thing as a common law homosexual marriage and by right. But it really can't happen. It has to be by license. Because it's something illegal, right? Homosexuality, a homosexual act is a crime, and it is a crime against nature. It makes, as Judge Roy Moore of Alabama says, it makes a man unfit. It makes a person unfit. And so it has to be licensed to be permitted. And now, of course, not just permitted, but recorded as well, recorded in the record, making your marriage, the marriage of you, my listener, to your wife, no different, no better than the union of Jim and Joe. The capitulation was very easy here in Tennessee. We volunteered readily. Governor Haslam said, "We will comply with the decision and will ensure that our departments are able to do so as quickly as possible." Nathan Deal in Georgia at the time said that Georgia is subject to the laws of the United States, and we will follow them. Well, we respect the decision. The Attorney General of Tennessee, Herbert Slattery III, said, and he had more to say about this big question of capitalization today. He said back on June 26, he said the decision not only changes the definition of marriage, but takes from the states and their citizens the long-standing authority to vote and decide what marriage means. To the Tennessee citizen who asks, "Don't we get a chance to vote on this in some way?" the answer from the Supreme Court is a resounding "No, you do not." For the court to tell all Tennesseans that they have no voice, no right to vote on these issues is disappointing. Okay, so here what he's doing is he is expressing the policy view of the state, which is that marriage is between one man and one woman. But notice how he's capitulating by highlighting what everybody agrees is true. He's highlighting that, and he's making it dramatic, saying, well, the court is telling you that no, you don't have the right to vote on this. You don't have a right to have law in our state, public policy in our state reflect reality. No, the court, he goes on to say, nevertheless has spoken, and we respect its decision. Our office is prepared to work with the governor and the General Assembly as needed. And that is to say, the Attorney General's office, his Attorney General and reporter, Herbert H. Slattery III, as needed to make the necessary steps to implement the decision. Now, how can that possibly be? How can that possibly be that we have all these oaths of office, including that of Governor Haslam, a Republican, and a Presbyterian elder, no less. You have no sense. We have a kind of abject capitulation. It is a giving the head. It is a bowing the head, and yet we don't have really reason to think that there's not a solution. And the solution, of course, is local economy. And you say, well, how can local economy be a solution to this? This is a national crisis, a national overturning of 8,000 years of human civilization in our law. Well, it is just an opinion, after all. It is not binding. Courts don't make laws. Courts give opinions, and that's all they do. That that a court can do. It has to be believed by the people. They have to believe it's law for it to be law. And in fact, that is what most people are led to believe, thanks to the lawyerly guild here in Hamilton County, the county attorney's office advising Bill Knowles that there is no stand to make. There is nothing you can say. There is no law left. When that opinion came out, the law that you thought was a law, that you thought, as you read the English words in the Tennessee Code annotated, said that marriage is between one man and one woman, and nothing will stand between the people of this state and that promise. Well, those words now have no more meaning. It is as if a neutron bomb had detonated, and all the buildings in a neutron bomb remain standing, though the human life of in that city where it has gone off, even the insects between the walls, even the rats down in the basement are dead. And in the same way, in the neutron bomb theory of law that Governor Haslam and Bill Knowles and probably most of our representatives and public servants believe in, those words now have no life. It's as if that somehow they had been turned into Cyrillic letters, or maybe even Chinese hieroglyphics. But the advantage to those, of course, is they can be interpreted. But if you look at our Tennessee Constitution, everyone agrees that this opinion has turned those words which are in the English language and which are meant for public consumption and which are published, right? They're published. They now are on the book and they have no significance whatsoever. They are deconstructed. Their life has been drained out of them, like the sap from a tree that is left with just the shell of its trunk and its branches. Mark West is telling us in a note about the city council meeting yesterday what the problem is. Now there's an attempt, going to be a long-term attempt to consolidate gay thinking, gay law, gay premises in every level of society, and it's going to affect public school, and it's going to affect the university. It's going to affect the bar, because after all, an opinion is law. After all, the judiciary, the branch of the federal government that gives legal opinions, is now a dual-headed branch. It is a hydra-headed entity. It makes law as well as opines on legality and opines on the application of statutes and laws to particular conflicts. Mark West says that in an email to several people, including me, your host, David Toulis, he says that the phrase in the non-discrimination ordinance proposal, gender identity or expression, is the hang-up, and that the opponents of this measure are not supporting discrimination. They're not supporting harassment in the workplace in Chattanooga city government offices, but the phrase that is concerning him is gender identity of or expression, and he says that there's a great deal of ambiguity there, and it is going to cause all kinds of problems. Now, I have an analysis at Chattanooga that came out yesterday, just during the show. John Wilson posted my analysis of it, a very light sketch of what the problems are. And in reality, the arguments I make are pro-gay. I'm looking out for the interest of homosexuals who eventually will work in its city government. Ordinances such as the one that are sought are hazardous to all parties, not just to traditionalists, not just to Christians who speak their mind or who say something like, I think you should really turn away from being a homosexual. You should really consider yourself, or I really love my wife. She's the most wonderful woman. I could never marry a man. I could only marry a woman. You say something like that and you're in trouble today. Well, in a few years, it'll be the other way around when gay shares have plummeted. In fact, they'll plummet so far that trading will stop in gay shares. And then the homosexual who makes a conversation on the phone that's overheard, telling about his planned Atlanta bathhouse trip on Friday. Well, that's insulting. That's insulting to the married woman in the next cubicle. She's going to say, he's assaulting my sexuality. He's assaulting my gender decision. He's assaulting my marriage decisions. And I take umbrage. I'm filing a report. It'll work both ways. It depends on whose shares are up or whose shares are down. This is David Toulis, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. Make sure that you go to Advantage Printing, as I do, if you've got some printing needs.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Right now, you can save half off at hotnewstalkradio.com. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click half off for exceptional deals on new and pre-owned unique quality items. For Hamilton County residents only. Save half off at Jet's Pizza, golf clubs, coffee, tea, a real sword, jewelry, and much more. It's half off. Go to half off at hotnewstalkradio.com right now, then click on half off to save big. Be sure to join us live Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. as we bring you lots of fantastic deals right here, AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. hotnewstalkradio.com and half off. Surf our site and ride the wave of savings. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas, every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second. Earnhardt going for the lead.
The NASCAR Sprint Cup Series is on the Motor Racing Network. Coverage continues Sunday here at Live on the Motor Racing Network, the voice of NASCAR.
Check it out live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Hot News Talk 1240.
When my brother and I opened the first Jet's Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. A search for answers on Wall Street after all trading comes to a sudden halt on the New York Stock Exchange.
NYSE options is trading, ARCA is trading. But here's the thing, they have to cancel all the orders. They're canceling everything. D quotes, market on close orders. They are now doing these at 120 orders at a time. This is what I'm hearing from the group. I'm not getting an official statement.
Fox Business Network's Nicole Petalides on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. A technical issue also also plaguing United Continental this morning.
United's computers were only down for less than 2 hours, but now there's a lot of planes to get back in the air after flights were grounded. Company officials said network connectivity was the problem.
Fox Radio's Tanya J. Powers and the U.S. Bureau of Land Management investigating whether an agent's gun was used in the shooting death of a woman on a popular San Francisco pier. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nuganomics with David Toulis.
TV 12 is reporting that 2 Chattanoogans are being compensated to the tune of $50,000 for having been sprayed by poison gas by police officers during the Occupy Wall Street protests. One of them is Damian Crisp. The other recipient of this compensation is an unnamed woman whom Crisp calls her Julie, doesn't give her last name's not reported. And they were unjustly blasted with pepper spray, according to Amy Catcher's account of this favorable development on TV 12. There's also a protest online among people who are committed to public education, but who think that reforms, so-called reforms, these sort of simulacrum, phony reforms that are proposed every year, something new. These are not in favor of state authority and state control. There's a bill before the federal Congress, H.R. 5, and it's the No Child Left Behind Reauthorization Act, which one essay on a website called AmericanPrinciplesInAction.org says should be repealed. H.R. 5 continues, this post says, a master-servant relationship between the U.S. Department of Education and the states, requiring state plans and giving the secretary enormous authority to approve or disapprove of them. It extends federal tentacles, it says, beyond elementary and secondary schools to preschool, replacing the No Child Left Behind application to all public elementary school and secondary school students with the phrase, very catch-all and broad, helpful phrase, all public school students. And at another point, the bill considers a state legislature to have waived, quote, the state's rights and authorities to act inconsistently with any requirement that might be imposed by the secretary. If the legislature even approves an overall budget for the state that includes any money from the federal education programs in section 6561. So in other words, if your state legislature approves any funding from the federal government for your cartel, you are implicitly granting that you will not protest or argue any requirement that might be imposed by the secretary. Well, that is how the national government works. It buys its way into your affections, into your heart, and then finally into your bureaucracy, and you cannot really get out. And that is how things work, and that's been explained by Ludwig von Mises in his book, I think 1946, Bureaucracy, and of course many other writers who talk about the reign of experts or the tyranny of experts, and the like. Over the years, there have been many editions that deal with that topic. And in the medical field, one entrepreneur here in Chattanooga that is combating the pernicious effects of bureaucratism is David Redd, and he runs Quick Surge. Quick Surge is a walk-in clinic in North Shore at the Publix shopping center, and David does moles and skin tags and lacerations, things that require only a local anesthesia. And what's innovative about David Redd and Quick Surge is that he does not take insurance. It's a cash-only service. And so prices are fixed, prices are published, and probably 20 or 30% of the price of a similar insurance or government-paid procedure. His website is quicksurge.com. That's QUIKSURG.com, QUIKSURG.com. Quick Surge and it is part of the marketplace solution. The marketplace always has solutions. If when the government steps in to provide a solution, right, to a gap in the market or an incapacity in the market, it does so, and it excludes the market at all those points where that system operates and rumbles along. But beyond it, there of course is the marketplace. The problem, though, is that when you have tax funding to pay for, let's say, the hamburger cartel of your city, or we're gonna have since transportation is so important, we're gonna have the state take over all used car lots. Well, you have a loss of capital in that area. You have a decapitalization, and suddenly the service goes down, the quality goes down. There's all kinds of scheming, there's skimming, and many other things that are cause for a loss. A loss simply means it costs too much, right? It costs too much, or you can't make the gain that you expect. You can't make the profit you expect. You can't buy, let's say, the used car at the price you expect because of the cartel having its way with you, the cartel running things and helping the people, right? Representing the people. Well, that hasn't happened in the auto sector, and we can be glad about that. AutoMax is a little car dealership on Highway 58. It has a big selection. It's a little dealership, I say, because it has a very low overhead, and I say that to point out that it's low overhead means your price for your car is $2,000 to $3,000 less than if you were buying that car at another used car dealership. It's run by Louis Otero and his wife Melanie, and he does everything as we point out, and he does a lot of business by referral. That is to say, a lot of satisfied customers refer their friends, and we want to help him along and want to help you along because of the good deals that he offers. Call AutoMax if you want to make sure he's there. 643-2886. Usually Louis is there in the dealership just opposite Central High School on Highway 58. The number again is 643-2886. Make sure you mention that we are the radio station that sent you there, and that you are want to give us credit, if you will. That would be very gratefully appreciated. Now, my name is David Toulis, and our show is Nuganomics.com. We cover local economy and the free market. And I was reading the other day that in the rise in gay marriage under statute, right? You do something under a license or under the statute if it's something that's not allowed, right? So we all think that somehow you can't drive a car without a license. Therefore, it's a crime to drive a car without a license. Therefore, you have to have a license to do it. And marriage, of course, is a crime too. Everybody gets married under the law, and so in reaction to the inclusion now of homosexuals in the gay in marriage, Christians in various parts of the country are getting divorced. Right, people who had statutory marriages are getting divorced, and it says they're filing for divorce en masse to defy gay marriage ruling. Well, a story that tells about some couples in Topeka, Kansas, really doesn't tell the whole story. It has a quote from Adam Cyrus, who's a founder of Christ in Family Services, who says, "We are symbolically divorcing a government which no longer honors our culture and values. We have no desire to benefit from a system which characterizes us as the enemy and enables and rewards sin under the guise of holy matrimony. If they wish to reward and empower those who desire to make a mockery of our faith and misrepresent our religion, then we intend to remove ourselves altogether from this bureaucracy." Well, what needs to happen is, of course, that if you love your wife and you say, I despise the idea of having married by permission, and I think we're going to undo that. Well, the next step has to be that you marry at common law. You say, okay, well, now we're going to marry as a matter of right. And marriage at common law, even in a non-common law marriage state such as Tennessee, has five, probably maybe more or less five constituent elements. And that would be capacity. All right, in your case, okay, let's pretend you're 21 years old again, and your sweetheart's 17. Okay, you're going to marry a young woman. The parties have to have capacity, meaning she has to have the ability to say yes, and she has to be able to. And she might have to have permission from her parents. So she has to have capacity. She has to have consent. She has to say yes to you. And then there has to be consummation. That's the best part, right? Consummation, when you make love to your 17-year-old bride, then there's cohabitation. You live together. And the last thing is holding forth as married. Holding forth, it's called. And there you simply say, well, I'm David Toulis, and this is my wife, Jeanette. We're married. I want you to meet my new wife, and so on. And so everyone starts to know that, well, Sally is your wife, right? She's your wife, and everybody eventually ties you to hers. And in the public mind, among close friends, even among strangers who just know your name only, they know that there's a Mrs. in your life, and that's how you establish marriage. And what happens as you establish marriage is that you make it legally binding. And what that means is that there is created a property right, you and her, and hers in you. She has a property right in you, and you have a property right in her. Now that's consortium. That's all. You often hear that right expressed, referred to when you have a loss of consortium, right? When, say, there's a car accident and your wife is incapacitated and you can't make love to her. Okay, you can't make love to your wife for a month, or 2 months, or 5 months, some dreary long period. Well, that's loss of consortium, and so you can sue for damages on that. And that's why. How does that work? Well, you have a property right in her, and so you've lost that right of making love to your wife, and so that's an actionable offense, and you can be compensated for it. And there are all kinds of other rights, right? The right of care, the right of protection, the right of sustenance, the right of money for your children, right? She has a right to have your income go for her and your children. She has a right to that. And so property rights are just part of it. But marriage is a bond that's unbreakable. In the common law sense, in the biblical sense, it is not to be broken by a light casting off of the woman because she does not please you, right? And the Lord scolded the Pharisees, who were almost all of them adulterers, and lightly casting off wives, and of course casting off their parents. They didn't care for their parents either, though they were very pious-looking people, and spoke without much authority. Well, where do we want to go? There is a survey that touches on an important point about the public mood, and the public mood is one that I think you reflected, and the mood is we're tired of them. We are tired of what I call the good people, and I call them the good people not in disdain, because I call them that because that's what they want to be. That's the ones in the front of the show are the ones who want to be. The ones behind the scenes, the deep state types, they have no benevolent bone in them at all. They are very self-seeking. But there's a poll from Rasmussen Reports, according to thehill.com, the Washington newspaper, if you will, the Washington news outlet. And most Americans believe that individual states should have the authority to refuse federal court rulings. This came out Friday, and it says that increasing number of likely U.S. voters believe states can disobey federal opinions if their elected officials agree with them. Of course, this follows Obergefell. Rasmussen found that 33% of likely U.S. voters think states should be able to ignore federal court rulings. And the number is up 9 points from 24% in a survey like it in February. Just over half, 52%, disagree, down from 58% in the previous sampling. Rasmussen Reports also found that 50% of conservative voters support this idea, as do 27% of moderates and 15% of liberals. Well, liberals, it's too bad to say. I mean, I'm a classical liberal. Okay, I'm a classic liberal, which means a free market, Bastiat type, von Mises type, Gary North type free marketer. And liberals, though, are not in favor of local autonomy. They don't like the idea of states saying no, county clerks saying no, county commissions, sheriff's department. These are all people who can't say no, right? You can't say no to a lawless opinion or lawless claim against you. And what if think is there anything worse than ruling against marriage per se? Is there anything that's worse than that? Let's say that the high court the high court had an opinion about the following situation. A child here in Chattanooga is going to be decapitated at a future date that's been published in the Chattanooga Times-Free Press. That child is going to be decapitated unless there is a court ruling in its favor, or in his favor. Let's say it's a boy. Well, the high court, though, rules that that child cannot be saved, that no one, the Sheriff Hammond, that Fred Fletcher cannot intervene. He cannot intervene to save that child's life. Well, what are we going to do? Are we going to say, well, I guess we just can't do anything. That child is destined for death, and we're just going to sit here. We are not allowed to. We've been told we can't do that. We are the plaintiffs, perhaps, or we're somehow implicated in the scope of language in that ruling or that opinion, and we're helpless. Well, that did happen. It was in 1973, and the case was Roe v. Wade, and more than 50 million children were destroyed and sitting on their hands around the country. I think without a single exception, were sheriff's deputies, sheriffs, the elected sheriffs, hirelings in city police departments, and to a man, the occasional woman, of course, to a soul, they refused to lift a finger to help save any lives among the millions of boys and girls who were liquidated by decapitation and all kinds of other gruesome, medically proven methods. Well, James Madison was a contender for the idea of intervention and interposition, the idea that we find sorely not being defended here in Chattanooga and in Tennessee, where James Madison said that the feds could not exercise undelegated powers. He also called them unwarranted powers. Does the federal government, does any department of the federal government, which has 3 departments, do any of them have the authority to say we rule something, we order something, when that power is unwarranted? Now, the word unwarranted means that it's unauthorized. Where does the authorization come from? Well, it comes from the Constitution. And the Constitution is, as you may remember from your public school civics class, it is a document, it is an authorization of explicit or enumerated powers. If there is a power expressly granted to the national government, to the federal government, it's called, in Washington, then that power can be exercised within certain limits. And what Madison argued for, and what the anti-federalists argued for, was the living out of this ideal. And that's what local economy really calls for as well. Local economy calls for the governor in Nashville, that faraway capital, and also our constitutional officers. Bill Knowles is a county clerk. He's not just an administrator. He is a constitutional officer. He takes an oath to uphold the Constitution, and has his office is constitutional. In other words, it's in the law, and I believe it's also in the Constitution. So he has a higher duty than just an employee like Fred Fletcher to uphold the Constitution. And James Madison said that should an unwarrantable measure of the federal government be unpopular in a particular state, which would seldom fail to be the case, or even be a warrantable measure, or even a warrantable measure be so, which may sometimes be the case, the means of opposition to it are powerful and at hand. Okay, so the opposition is not, as Herbert Slattery suggests in his letter that you read about today. It came out July 2, and he is asking for the federal government to defend, to make a defense against another part of the federal government. He's asking Congress to defend against another part of the federal government. He is in a kind of a feint, if you will. He's pretending, he's kind of marketing his office by doing this, but he's not actually